Is mathematics a science? I would immediately say yes. It uses the same set of, the same kind of thought process, I would think. Deduction, extraction, verification, drawing conclusion, comparison, differentiation, the same sort of tools and thought process. My name is James Feng. I'm a professor at the University of British Columbia in 2 departments because I have a joint appointment. One is in mathematics, the other is in chemical and biological engineering. The kind of research that we do is considered by my math colleagues applied math, and by my engineering colleagues as somewhat esoteric and theoretical engineering. I study mostly fluid dynamics. The origin of this discipline is the air and water flow, and that has to do with how airplanes fly and how ships can sail on top of water. My version of the fluid dynamics has more to do with something called complex fluids. Hydrogels, people are familiar with gels, like shaving gels or all kinds of gel, toothpaste, they're like gels, hair gel. They are an amazing set of materials because they have very little solid content, just some typically a polymer network inside, amounting to less than 1% typically by volume. The rest is all water. Now this material is very soft, it's non-toxic, very deformable, and it's porous. So therefore, in biomedical engineering, people have figured out ways of using gels as carriers for cells. So because it's porous, it's non-toxic, and it's biocompatible, we can use them to hold cells to make a little bed or house for the cells where they can grow into interesting and useful morphologies. Maybe an artificial organ.
In today's world, you use hydrogel in drug delivery or in artificial organs, and we want to know how is their behavior in different situations, when they are under pressure, when they are not under pressure, what is their behavior. It is difficult to have experiments on a live body, so we have to simulate everything, use the mathematics equations.
My group is highly theoretical, so we don't do many experiments in the lab. We occasionally do, but mostly my students, they do computations. So we use numerical simulations to probe ideas that we thought are interesting or worthwhile. Simulations resemble lab experiments in the sense that once you have your mathematical model and once you turn that into a numerical simulation, you are free to vary the parameters in your simulation to, simulate an airplane flying at different velocities or different processes. You're certainly free to do that, and that's very much similar to changing experimental parameters in a real physical lab. So to do that, they have to do programming, and then they test their codes to make sure that they work efficiently and accurately.
I generally use MATLAB for the small case, like for small calculation, like just to do some tests or small methods and a simple program. But for like a more complicated one, I will use C++. In that way, we can use more complicated numerical methods, and I have more freedom to change everything. Also provide the ability to solve this more complicated equation even more faster and efficient.
Those are tools. The coding part is like tool making. Once you have those tools, nice and shiny and sharp, you apply them to the questions you want to answer. You try to use the tools to dissect the problems, to probe the relationship between the different components and factors, and to seek answers using your simulation tool. There are problems where we can have an experimental validation. So let's say we're trying to solve a complex problem. We built a model for it. Now we take this model and we put it on the side and we work out a simpler version of it for which we can get a solution. So, and then we go to the lab perhaps to do a physical experiment, and we can compare the answers between the model and the actual physical process in the lab. That can serve as a validation. That I would consider evidence. But not all problems are amenable to this kind of validation. Oftentimes, we would validate our work by making comparisons to what others have achieved in a slightly different, or maybe simpler, easier problem. We consider that as well a process of validation. So, seen in this light, you can say you can build up in a certain area. You build up your knowledge by solving harder and harder problems. Each step, you may reach back and use the previous results for the simpler problems as validation. So you are not going wildly into the dark, but you are kind of going from one stone to the next with some guardrail. Not every day, but we do a lot of writing. This maybe I want to emphasize with you guys, and this is something that I talk to my graduate students the first day that they arrive. I even had a kind of intentionally provocative argument that writing ability equals research ability, maybe 80-85% of it. The reason is we do so much writing. Writing is not only to put thoughts on paper for others to see, but also for you to debate with yourself or with others. The idea is to arrange them, to see where the argument goes, and to find openings for new breakthroughs. So writing is extremely important for doing research, and we do a lot of it. Research takes a lot of effort and money, and that depends on the funding policy of the government, both provincial and federal. And those are things largely out of our control. So oftentimes we struggle for funding. Even if we think we have good ideas, they don't always get to see the time of day. We're putting ourselves to the frontier for knowledge. So, and then we constantly find ourselves in the domain of the unknown. So oftentimes we grope in the dark. We're not sure whether certain techniques would work or not. We try different things. We brainstorm for new ideas. For me, the greatest thing, the most rewarding thing, is the opportunity to work with new and young talents all the time, ranging from undergraduate students like yourselves to graduate students and then to postdocs. And we teach them. It's not a one-way street of knowledge transfer. Instead, we ask questions of each other, and then they bring in their unique insights, and they challenge me as well. To me, that's the coolest thing about doing science.